Welcome back, deep divers. Ready for another fascinating deep dive. Today we've got something super cool. A superhero story written by a young student, Ben.
Sounds fun.
It is. We also have some research and advice on giving feedback to young writers.
Okay.
So Ben's story, it features this dog, Sparky.
Okay.
And Sparky gets superpowers. We'll get this, from eating a glowing bone. And then he gets super speed, super breath, the whole shebang. Can even leap over buildings in like a single bound.
Wow, that's creative.
Right. And Sparky doesn't just like have these powers, he uses them. He rescues a cat stuck in a tree, saves this little old lady from, getting hit by a car.
That's great.
Yeah, and then he even confronts this villain, Mean Mike. Mean Mike, who's been stealing all the ice cream.
He's classic, right? But as much as I love all this action, I did notice a few little things with Ben's writing, like the past tense verbs. He uses run and eated.
Ah, yeah, I see. Well, that's pretty common, for young writers.
Yeah. He's trying to apply logic to the language, but hasn't quite figured out those irregular forms yet.
Right, exactly. So how do we help him out with this grammar stuff without, making him feel bad about his creativity?
Well, one really good technique is the sandwich method.
Okay.
Praise, correction, praise. The research shows that, starting and ending with positive stuff, it really helps kids take the feedback without, feeling discouraged.
Makes sense.
Like you could say, Ben, I love how fast Sparky zooms around. That's awesome. But, we usually say, ran, not runned. Keep up the great action.
Yeah, I see. So instead of just being like, hey, you did this wrong, it's more like, this is great, but remember this and keep going.
Exact.
Okay, I like that. But what about beyond just this one example? How can we help him with all these tricky verbs in general?
Well, we could, use Ben's love for superheroes to our advantage, right? Make personalized verb charts using his own story. So Sparky has to fly or leap and rescue, but in the past tense to beat the bad guys.
Ooh, I like that.
Or even some fun matching games, present tense and past tense.
Okay.
And maybe even some storytelling exercises where he has to use those verbs.
Yeah, so it's like we're snooking into learning while he's having fun with the superheroes.
Exactly.
Like secret mission.
Yeah.
And speaking of superheroes, we could probably use Ben's passion for all that to help with his overall writing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. Superhero vocabulary lists. Writing prompts with Sparky facing new challenges. We could even use comic book formats to teach him about sentence structure.
Ooh, that's cool. Have you seen that research on gamification in education?
Yeah.
What if we made an app where Ben helps Sparky overcome these grammar obstacles to beat the villains?
Wow, that's a fantastic idea. We could have different levels, rewards for using the right grammar. And we could even personalize it, use Ben's own characters.
Yeah.
And, even without the app, we could have him write character descriptions focusing on their superhero traits. So what makes Sparky brave? How does Mean Mike show he's sneaky?
Oh, yeah.
Not only would this help with vocabulary, but also with those analytical skills.
It's like we're giving Ben his own superpower upgrade, making him a better writer, but keeping it fun.
Right.
Even small things like capitalization can make a big difference. I noticed Ben missed a few capitals in his story. How can we help him with that, without stopping his creativity?
Well, visual aids and multisensory learning can be really effective, especially for younger kids. We could make visual reminder cards with superhero themes, interactive digital tools that give instant feedback.
I see, basically.
Or even have Ben jump at the start of every sentence to remind him about capitalization. Make it active,
Yeah. Okay. So we're giving Ben this whole toolbox to become a writing superhero. But I'm also thinking about that balance, giving feedback, but not, crushing his enthusiasm.
Oh, for sure.
How do we make sure that doesn't happen?
It's all about balance and positive reinforcement. We want to encourage a love for writing, not create perfect grammar robots, right? Instead of pointing out errors, we can focus on making his vocabulary better in a way that makes him feel powerful.
Okay.
So instead of saying, use more descriptive words, we give him the tools to do it himself, but using things he already loves.
Yeah. Okay.
We can make word banks based on his interests, maybe words about superhero powers or villains or action scenes, or use picture prompts to generate descriptive words, or even play word building games, but with a superhero theme. So you have a villain with thunderous laughter, a hero with lightning fast reflexes, a city under a shadowy threat.
I love those examples.
Right.
It feels more like an invitation than a correction.
Exactly.
So he's expanding his creative toolbox instead of feeling like he messed up.
That's the magic of using their interests. Learning becomes an adventure.
It's like giving Sparky a power boost. But wait, there's more to Ben's writing journey, and we have even more expert strategies to uncover. So stick with us as we continue this deep dive into constructive feedback for young writers.
Definitely.
You know, as we look more at Ben's story, it's really cool how much he already gets about storytelling.
Yeah, it is.
Like he's got a clear beginning, middle, and end.
Right. It's impressive, actually. You see Sparky's origin story, his heroic actions, and then, how things wrap up with Mean Mike. He understands how a story flows, which is pretty amazing for his age.
It is, and it's so important to encourage those basic storytelling skills, even more than just, perfect grammar.
For sure.
So how can we build on what he's already doing and help him, become an even better storyteller?
Well, we could introduce this idea of branching possibilities in the plot. What if Sparky had to team up with another superhero?
Oh, interesting.
What if Mean Mike's reasons for stealing ice cream were more complicated? Asking these what-if questions can help him see things from different angles and explore, new directions for the story.
It's like opening up a whole universe of possibilities.
Exactly. And another thing we could do is encourage Ben to develop, backstories for his characters. So where did Sparky get his strong sense of justice from?
Oh, yeah.
What happened to Mean Mike that made him start stealing all that ice cream? Adding those details makes the characters, deeper and more interesting to read about.
It's like giving each character their own little origin story.
Right. And as Ben gets better at that, we could even bring in the idea of subplots.
Subplot.
Yeah, maybe Sparky has a sidekick who's just learning how to be a superhero.
Okay.
Or there's another superhero team that, sometimes clashes with Sparky.
I see. So it adds more layers to the story.
Yeah. Makes it more exciting to read.
I can see how that would push Ben to think more about the plot,
Yeah.
how the characters interact. It's really cool how we can use this one story he wrote as a starting point for so much learning.
Right.
But I'm also thinking about how do we actually assess his progress?
Oh, that's important.
Without making it feel like a test or, killing his creativity.
Right.
How do we make assessment a good experience?
Well, one way is to use something called portfolio-based assessment.
Okay.
Basically, we collect his writing over time and look for signs of improvement, is he using past tense verbs better? Is he using more descriptive language? Are his sentences getting more complex? This way, it's about the whole journey, not just one final product.
Like a scrapbook of his writing adventures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to give him even more ownership, we could involve Ben in the assessment itself.
I do.
We could create self-assessment rubrics, with clear goals.
Okay.
And encourage him to think about his own work. This helps him develop metacognition, that ability to, think about his own thinking. He'll become a more aware writer. It's like a superpower, the power of self-reflection.
Right. He understands his strengths and what he needs to work on so he can really take control of his writing.
I like that. We've talked a lot about helping Ben with his writing, but what about punctuation? I mean, it's so important for making his story clear, but it's often overlooked.
That's true. Punctuation might seem small, but it's super important for meaning and making a story flow well. But we can definitely make learning about it fun for Ben.
Yeah, because I struggle with some of it myself. How do we make it less scary for him?
Well, think about his love for comic books. We can use sound effects to teach him about exclamation points. Like he can write BAM or PLW to make Sparky's actions really jump off the page.
I can already hear him saying that with all the enthusiasm.
Right. It connects punctuation to something he loves.
Definitely.
And we can get creative. We can make the punctuation marks into characters. Like maybe Captain Comma is there to separate items in a list, and Wonder Woman period brings sentences to a strong stop.
Ooh, I like that.
It makes the rules easier to remember. Way more fun than just memorizing a bunch of rules.
Right. We can even use movement activities to represent the different punctuation marks. Maybe Ben jumps for an exclamation point, stomps for a period, and pauses for a comma.
So by making it active, he really understands how punctuation is important.
Exactly. Okay, deep divers. We've looked at a lot of great ways to give feedback to young writers, but there's one last piece we need to figure out.
What's that?
How do we help Ben become his own editor?
That's a good question. It's like giving him the power to really take charge of his writing.
Exactly. He needs to learn to look at his work critically.
So how do we help him do that?
One way is to create like a personalized editing checklist, but with icons or pictures.
Okay.
Maybe Sparky reminds him to check for capitalization, and Mean Mike is there to remind him about spelling.
I love that. It's like Sparky and Mean Mike are working together, not fighting, to help Ben make his writing better.
Exactly. We could also use a detective theme for finding errors. So Ben becomes a grammar detective, searching for clues like missing commas or periods.
Oh, like Sherlock Holmes, but for grammar.
Exactly. And to make his self-editing even better, we could have him do some peer editing with some guiding questions.
Peer editing.
Yeah, he shares his work with a classmate, and they help each other find things to improve.
Okay.
This not only helps with editing, but also teaches them to work together and support each other's writing.
He's like they're a superhero writing team. I like that.
And lastly, we could encourage Ben to use a recording device to review his own work. He can record himself reading his story out loud and then listen back.
Okay.
Sometimes hearing your own work can help you catch mistakes or awkward parts that you don't see when you're just reading silently.
It's like getting a fresh perspective on your own work.
Exactly. All these self-editing strategies will be so helpful as Ben keeps growing as a writer. They give him the tools and confidence to improve his writing and express his ideas clearly.
It's like leveling up his writing skills.
Right. And in the end, that's what we want, right?
Yeah.
To help him learn the skills he needs to share his creativity and his unique voice with everyone.
Well, deep divers, we've gone over a lot today. So many different strategies for giving feedback to young writers.
There's always more to learn, though, when it comes to helping young writers and showing them how fun storytelling can be.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what really sticks out to you? Which strategies or ideas were the most helpful or inspiring?
That's a great question for our listeners to think about. As you consider everything we've talked about today, think about how you can use these strategies to support the young writers in your own lives.
And stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll talk about even more specific ways to give feedback and how to create a supportive and encouraging learning environment for young writers. As we wrap up our deep dive into feedback for young writers, I'm thinking about everything we've covered, from Sparky saving the day to, giving him those grammar tools. It's been quite a ride.
It has been. And it's interesting how all these strategies kind of come back to one big idea, meeting the young writer where they are.
You mean like understanding what they're into, their passions, and how they learn best?
Exactly. It's about tapping into what already excites them about writing. Instead of forcing a bunch of rules, we're helping them explore language and stories in a way that feels real and interesting to them.
So it's not just about fixing mistakes, right?
Yeah.
It's more about helping them see challenges as a way to learn and grow.
Yeah, think of it this way. We're not just teaching them how to write. We're teaching them how to think, how to tell a good story, create a whole world, make their characters, come alive.
Okay, so for those of us, working with these young writers, what are the big things we can do to help them on their creative journey?
Well, first of all, remember how powerful encouragement is. Celebrate their ideas, their own voice, even their mistakes, which are really just them trying new things.
It's like, what's that famous quote? I haven't failed. I just found 10,000 ways it won't work. Every time they try, even if it's not perfect, it gets them closer to, being really good.
Right. So instead of saying that's wrong, we can say, that's an interesting choice. Tell me why you used that word or wrote the sentence like that. It's about making them feel safe to experiment and explain their creative decisions.
And, along with encouragement, I think being playful is really important. Using games, activities, even being a little silly, it makes learning more fun and they remember it better.
Absolutely. Remember our punctuation superheroes, Captain Comma and Wonder Woman period?
Oh, yeah. How could I forget?
We're not just teaching rules. We're creating these memorable characters that help them understand how language works.
And those characters really stick with you. Beyond those specific things, I think it's important to personalize our approach because every kid learns differently, right?
That's so true. Some kids love visual aids. Others learn best by doing things. And some are more auditory learners. By paying attention to how they learn best, we can make our feedback, really connect with them.
It's like giving them a custom-made toolkit with all the right tools for their writing adventure.
Exactly. And lastly, remember that learning to write takes time. It's not a race. There will be tough spots, times they get frustrated, and times when it feels like they're not making progress. But with patience, encouragement, and believing in them, they can do amazing things.
That's like we're their sidekicks, offering support and guidance as they explore this crazy world of writing. We're there to cheer them on, lend a hand, and celebrate their wins.
And who knows, maybe one day they'll be writing the next great superhero story, inspiring a whole new generation of writers.
That's a great thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into feedback for young writers. We hope you learned some useful stuff and feel ready to support the young writers you know.
Remember, we all have the power to inspire these young writers. By encouraging a love for language, giving good advice, and celebrating their voices, we can help them, really unleash their creativity.
Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.